right. Okay, everybody. So I am here with one of KW Pasadena's newest up and coming agents. Zara, can you just introduce yourself just a little bit briefly?
Yeah, hi, my name is Zara Malik, and I joined KW Pasadena in January. I've been with you guys for about 5, 6 months now, and I just had my first sale last month. So I'm happy to be here.
You jumped into production fairly quickly.
I did.
The SoCal market tends to move a little slower. Transactions don't come along as often as we'd like. So from signing with KW to opening your first escrow, what was that time frame?
It was very quick. I think I was still in training up until the end of January. That's when I started. And I opened escrow at, I want to say the end of March, beginning of April. So really quickly.
What was the biggest lesson that you learned in your first escrow, in your first transaction?
Okay, so the biggest lesson that I learned was that sometimes the highest offer doesn't win. It's really about this how it's really about the market. And I used to think that the highest offer always wins, but in this market, that's not always the case. It's always the cleanest offer with the fewest contingencies that wins. And that stands out the most to the listing agent. And so that's why going in, I wish I had known that beforehand, because if I did, things would have been a lot different. But I did get my clients the win, and they did get their home, so they're very happy.
Yeah, I think that's such an incorrect preconceived notion is people think, well, it's just the highest price. Like plain and simple, it's the highest price. But when you get into the contract side of things, you understand the power of a clean offer, the power of contingencies, and lots of times we see that the highest price does not necessarily win. Uh,
Yeah, there's so much more to it than I thought. So this was a great learning experience for me, being my first ever transaction, and
yeah.
I still have like a high from it.
And I will say that yes, terms, price, clean offers, but there's another variable that I've mentioned multiple times, and that is how well the agent communicates with the other agent. And sometimes that's just clear communication, sometimes it's friendly communication, it's tastefully checking in on the transaction. And I think I told you this, that is going to be a strength of yours because you're very warm. And I think a lot of agents are going to see that opportunity for a clean, smooth transaction with you. So just so you know that that's a huge factor as well.
I really appreciate that you said that. Thank you. And you did give me that tip. So I do appreciate, like, the tip that you gave me was, be on the same page as a listing agent. Call them up. Ask them, what are you looking for? What does
Yeah.
the seller looking for? And so, I mean, that really helped me a lot.
I think I probably said it 3 or 4 times where you would call and say, should I do this or this? And I would say, call the agent and
Yeah,
see what they
exactly.
want. Like, what do
Exactly.
they want to see? And
Agree.
even then, that agent's going to turn around and ask the seller, hey, what do you want to see? And you save yourself a lot of trouble that way. Tell me, how did you come across this client? I mean, most people
Okay.
takes a long time to find their first client. So
Yeah.
tell us.
Okay, so this one is extra special because it came from my sphere of influence. When I first joined, everyone said, always look into your sphere of influence. They were right. So they're investors in my circle of friends, and they had several properties in the area. We bumped into each other at a party, and I just said to them, hey, on your next house, keep me in mind. And they said, okay. And I thought, nothing's probably going to come of this. Fast forward to my birthday, which was like a couple of weeks later, they call me up and they say, hey, Zara, we found a house we love, and we would love for you to show it to us and represent us. I mean, that moment meant everything. I'm incredibly grateful that they trusted me to guide them through such an important purchase, but it was a full circle reminder that your network is truly your net worth.
That's fantastic. And yeah, it's a dated statistic, so I'm sure that I'm gonna butcher it. It used to be that the average agent, their first transaction, 85% of the time was somebody that was already in their sphere of influence or in your phone. It wasn't somebody that you haven't met yet. And something else that you did, and I think this is what a lot of agents should hear, is you were posting on social media that you're in real estate, posting, ideally you're posting material, items of value that people find helpful. And I still am not convinced that client would have used you even if they would have seen what you posted on Facebook and what you sent out in an email, what got them to use you is you asking for the business.
Yes.
And
I just said, take a chance on me, you know?
yeah, and most people, and it's hard. That's an uncomfortable thing for a lot of people to do. And that's the difference between marketing and prospecting. Marketing is, I'm going to post market stats and I'm going to post, FHA loans, and I'm going to post all these things. Prospecting is going face to face or voice to voice and saying, hey, I would like you to use me. I'd like to help you, take a chance on me. And it paid off for you.
Yeah. And I'm so incredibly grateful. I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm dreaming that they, to take it. And the thing is that they have purchased many properties before, so the fact that they gave me a chance and they said, okay, you know what, we're going to go with Zara this time. And,
Yeah.
when I got them when we made, when our offer was accepted and we made that sale, they were just blown away. They were like, whoa, Zara, okay. In this market, we thought it would take a few tries, but that's awesome.
Very nice. So they did give you an at bat, and that was your opportunity to show them that, you can do what you say you're going to do. Something else, and again, I know we're speaking to newer agents with this statement or this topic, but they already had a real estate agent. Arguably, they probably had a few real estate agents.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you still were willing to go up to them and say, hey, despite this, I would like you to give me a chance. And you did that. So you were very bold in that. And I love that you did that. And also, knowing you, not terribly surprised that you were that bold. So that's awesome.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah, you know what? If I don't put myself out there, I'll never know. Got to
Yeah.
take that chance. And that's what I tell my kids as well. And they're like, Mom, can you say that? I'm like, just be confident. And what's the worst someone's going to say? No, or they won't call you. What's the worst, So
Something that has stuck with me. You're a walking testament to it, and I'm going to instill it in my kids when they're of age. But you, as an entrepreneur, business owner, real estate agent, you are going to be paid in direct proportion to the quality of the questions you ask. Yeah. So, for you to say, hey, how's it going? That is a very low question. You're going to get a very low return. But for you to say, hey, are you still looking in the market? Would you give me a chance? That is a high quality question, and you were rewarded with an escrow. So good on you.
Yeah, thank
Good
you.
on you. Okay, so it's not all sunshine and rainbows. So we talked about the highs, I think. What was the low? Like, give us something that you were like, holy cow, that was way harder than I thought it was going to be, or I didn't even anticipate it.
Well, when I sent in the offer, it's just the tension of negotiating those contingencies, right? I know I said I spoke to the listing agent and I knew to like shorten the contingencies, but just waiting to hear back from the seller and like waiting for the seller to accept that. Like, will he accept it? And then if he does, and then I got a seller, what is it? A counter offer back.
Seller multiple counter?
Yes, seller multiple counter back. And I thought, my goodness, I'm in the running with a bunch of other people. We got to make sure that I'm on the same page as my buyer, and the buyer is agreeing to what the seller is saying, about removing, like shortening the contingencies. And so that, our offer can get accepted. And that was the lowest low because you are frightened. What's going to happen?
Well, I will say that, and again, this is something that you impressed me with, is most all the other, so like, let's say there was 5 other buyers in the running. I would argue that 3 to 4 of those agents never talked to the listing agent. They turned around and they talked to their buyer and they said, what can you do? What should we do? They basically negotiated with themselves in a vacuum. One of the things that you did is, well, you asked me and I said, call the listing agent. So instead of excluding the most important party in this, you called the listing agent and you said, hey, we're putting this counter offer together. What should we put here? What will put us in the lead? And I mean, I would honestly say that was probably one of the biggest factors, is you were willing to include that communication factor with the other side. So that was awesome. That was good to see.
Yeah. And I did that. I called the listing agent, got on the same page as her. And then I spoke to my buyers and said, this is what the seller's willing to accept. Is that okay with you guys to go forward with this? And just say yes and sign off on the seller multiple counter. And they said, yeah, let's do it. Because I don't know whether I mentioned this, but we had actually made an offer on this house, and we had not, our first offer did not get accepted.
That's right.
Yeah. So our first offer actually wasn't accepted, and I didn't let it end there. I actually kept a close eye on that house and just made sure, okay, is it going to fall out of escrow? Because I know that maybe in the first week it may. And
Hmm.
that's what happened. It fell out of escrow. And that's when I called the listing agent, because you had told me, call the listing agents for whatever properties you put an offer on, because you want to make sure you send in an offer that's strong and competitive, with what they want to see. And then, so I spoke to my buyers. I said, hey, it fell out of escrow. What do you guys want to do? This is a great new opportunity. And they said, I spoke to the listing agent. This is what she said. And they were basically on the same page as her. And they said, hey, let's go for it. Let's go in strong. And we did.
Yeah, again, I mean, you're just doing all these things that I wish more agents did. And to be honest, I hope that everyone sees this video of how you do business, because it's hard to see that. If somebody's interviewing agents, it's hard to get them to see that you're going to follow up with the listing agent. You're going to keep an eye on properties that they missed out on so that they can come back again. When all the other agents are turning to their clients to write a counter, you're going to be on the phone with the listing agent like a true fiduciary. Okay. So now that you finished your first transaction, you're a pro, right? I mean, you know everything about real estate.
Yep.
Nothing's going to surprise you. If there was something where you say, I still want to master this, did anything get exposed during this where you're like, ooh, I need to get to work really practicing this part of real estate?
One of the things that one of the challenges that I actually felt that I needed to practice, and I think a lot of agents need to practice, is a comparative market analysis. One of
Ah,
the issues I actually had was that when this house went on sale, my buyer originally had lost out because they didn't think that house was valued at what it was marketed as, right? So it was marketed at, let's say, $1 million. They thought this shouldn't be $1 million because in this area, there was another house that sold for much less, and that house that sold for much less was in December when this house came on sale in March, right? So I did a comparative market analysis, and based on that, the price wasn't, matching up. So they didn't go in as high, right? Because they didn't think they needed to. So I think like you really need to make sure that you can do a good CMA, and I
mhm.
think practice that quite a bit, and know that there are going to be factors where there will be one house that sells in that area because it is a low turnover rate in that area, right? So you can't, so it was a mistake that we made on our end, because that now that house sold at 1 million. Now that's the new like comparative market analysis. That's what people will be using now. So that
Mhm.
was a little tricky about this area, I will say, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
It does. And the coach brain in me is going to identify something else that I'm noticing in you. And it's that where most agents would do one of two things. They would say, well, that person overpaid. Like they're idiots for doing that. Or they would say, well, who could have known? Instead, your approach is, I got to just keep practicing CMAs.
Yeah.
I have to get better at doing this. I think that's the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. A fixed mindset is, well, it is what it is. Like there's nothing we could have done, or they probably knew them, and like they probably did something under the table. And then the growth minded is, well, I just got to get better. I just got to practice and get better. And I think that's going to serve you really well. So, Zara, anything else? I promised you a short interview. We wanted to get this recorded because, well, A, most agents do not get into business as quickly as you. And B, I mean, you really are just a really growth-minded agent that I really think the sky's the limit for you. So what else do you want to share with us?
I mean, I don't, the only last bit that I will say is that once we removed all those contingencies, it really was smooth sailing from there. And I know that not every buyer will be as easy as these buyers were, because they were great with everything. And I know that this was, yeah. So I'm sure there's, every buyer has a different story. And I would just say, don't give up. And your network is really, truly your net worth. I love that because it's true.
So what's next? So
Yes.
I think the question is, what's your plan to keep showing value in your network?
Okay, so in my network, I'm a very transparent person, and I really love building my relationships with everyone around me. So I feel like I can really connect to a person, and I think that's what these buyers, when I connected with them and they were just like, "So what's going on? Are you guys in the market?" And I feel like when you're really transparent and you can really talk to people, I mean, it's called the art of small talk, right? Like try to get yourself in, squeeze your way into a close circle of friends or wherever, and you just start talking to people, start getting to know them a little bit better. And I don't like that salesy thing. Like, I'm not like, I'm a real estate agent. Guys, you should go with me. I'm a real estate agent. I really, truly like to just get to know people. And if they want to work with me, great. And I think that's what people like. They don't like it that I'm pushy, that I'm salesy. I'm just, I'm your friend. But if you want to work with me, that would be great.
That tends to be the theme that we see is good agents oftentimes are good agents because they are good friends. And in my opinion, that's the most enjoyable way to do business is you just care about people, you love on them,
Yes,
and you keep
exactly.
your skills sharp so that when they do need you, you can deliver. And I think
Yes.
you hit everything on the head with that. So Zara, it has been a pleasure having you with our office.
Thank you
Congratulations.
so much.
And on to the next escrow. All
Thank you.
right.
Fingers
Thank
crossed.
All right. Thank you, Zara.
Thank you.